እንደምን አደራችሁ? እንደምን አደራችሁ? አሜን። እግዚአብሔር ስም የተመሰገነ ይሁን። Christ is risen from the dead with great power and authority. He chained Satan. He freed Adam. Peace. Henceforth, there will be joy and peace. Today's lesson is going to be from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, which is the Gospel that we read today. As you guys know, we are in the Holy 50. So after the resurrection of Christ, for 50 days, we continue to celebrate. For 50 days, we celebrate it as if every day is the resurrection. You know how on Sunday of Tinsai or Fasika, we all came here, we all praised God, we all worshipped, we all sang, we did the Mahalit, we did the Qadasi, we had an amazing time worshiping God. Every day is supposed to be like that for these 50 days. Unfortunately for us, after that day ended, we went back to our old lives. We went back to eating a lot. We went back to praying less. We went back to coming to church later. But this is all the outcomes of not understanding the purpose of the fast that we just fasted. You know, the ironic part is, we keep saying Christ is risen from the dead. But why did he rise from the dead? Did he rise by himself, or did he bring people up from the dead with him? He brought people up, right? He didn't just rise by himself. He rose and brought everybody up with him. He rose and brought everybody up with him. But for us, even though he rose, we live as if we're still dead. What does that mean? That we live as if we're still dead. Meaning, during this time, we're supposed to be joyous. We're supposed to be praising. We're supposed to be grateful. We're supposed to be at peace. However, we went back to our old lives. We forgot the prayer, we forgot the fasting, we forgot the prostration, and we also forgot that Christ resurrected in our hearts. And we actually see this today in the Gospel of Luke chapter 24. I'm going to read it to you guys. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Make sure you pay attention, okay? Now behold, two of them were traveling that same day to a village called Amos, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. So it was, while they conversed and reasoned, that Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained, so they did not know him. I'll break it down part by part. So 2 disciples were walking, and they were talking about everything that had happened. So at this point, they didn't see the resurrected Christ. And so they're talking about, yeah, there was Jesus of Nazareth. He was with us for 3 years. He was doing miracles. He was doing these amazing things. But now we don't know what happened. Now we have no idea what happened. What do we do now? Where do we go? And these 2 disciples, they're walking. They're talking about these things. And then Jesus, he appears and he's with them. And he's walking with them. But they didn't recognize him. They didn't know it was Christ. And we'll see this. If you've been paying attention to the readings, ever since Tinsai, when Christ resurrected, initially, nobody recognized him. Remember Mary Magdalene? She was like, where's the Lord? Where's the Lord? When she was at the tomb. Even though he was right there, she didn't recognize him. Until he called her Mary and she said, Rabboni. But initially, none of them recognized him. Even though he's resurrected, nobody recognized him. Remember this. And he said to them, what kind of conversation is this that you have with one another as you walk and are sad? So they're sad. They gave up their whole lives to follow. You gotta imagine this, right? You have people, some of them who are married, some of them who were fishermen, some of them who were tax collectors, some of them who were making money, who decided to give up everything to follow Christ. And so for 3 years, they left their families, they left their jobs to follow Christ, and after 3 years, he died and they didn't know what happened. Imagine how you would feel. You can't go back to your job. You left it. You have nothing you own. Christ told them to sell everything you have, to give everything away. So they have nothing. And so they're sad. They're confused. They don't know what to do. And then it keeps going. Then the one whose name was Cleopas answered and said to him, are you the only stranger in Jerusalem, and have you not known the things that have happened in these days? So he's talking to Jesus. He doesn't know Jesus. He's like, what do you mean, why are we sad? Are you new to this town? Haven't you heard of Christ, who was here for 3 years, who they just crucified? What kind of question are you asking? He doesn't know who he's talking to yet. And then Jesus said to him, what things? So they said to him the things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. So they're telling him about Christ. They're telling Christ about Christ. And they say something very sad, actually, at the end. It says, it said they were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Back then, a lot of the disciples, they were following Christ because they thought that he was going to make Israel overthrow Rome. Roman Empire had Israel under control. So the Jews, when they were worshiping, they weren't worshiping freely. They had the Roman soldiers outside watching them, making sure they were not getting out of order. They had to pay taxes to the Romans. A lot of them were poor. It was a very bad situation. So when Jesus came, a lot of them were hoping that he was going to be the Messiah that overthrows the Romans. That makes the Jewish nation great. That makes them rule over the world. But they didn't understand that Christ did not come for an earthly kingdom. And so it says they had lost hope. They had lost hope. Isn't that ironic? They're walking with hope himself. They're walking with Christ himself. But they still don't have hope. Isn't that us? We're all Christians. We've all been baptized. We're all in the church. Yet we live our life as if we have no hope. Yes, yet as we go through the week, we have so many different sadnesses, so many different pains, so many things that stresses us out. As if Christ is not resurrected. To be anxious, to be sad, to be worried is to live as if Christ did not resurrect. In the Old Testament, I agree. Be sad, be worried. Why? Because when you die, there is no heaven for you. But now, the Christ is resurrected. What other hope do we need? What other hope do we need? And then he keeps going. Indeed, besides all of this, today is the 3rd day since these things have happened. So it's 3 days after the crucifixion. And certain women of our company who arrived at the tomb early astonished us when they did not find his body. They came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but him they did not see. Then he said to them, oh, this is Christ speaking, O foolish ones and slow of heart, to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? So he's calling them foolish. Because they're thinking like worldly. They're thinking, wow, how could the Messiah die? How could the Messiah experience pain? How could the Messiah appear to be weak? And Christ said, you guys are foolish. Have you not read the prophecies? Have you not read or understood that I did this out of my own will? At this point, they're very weak in faith. These are his disciples. Even Augustine, one of the church fathers, he says, these people, they have less faith than the thief on the right side of Christ. The thief, he saw Christ in his weakest state. He didn't see miracles. He didn't see Christ turn water to wine. He didn't see Christ walk on water. He didn't see Christ raise anyone from the dead. The only Christ he saw is the crucified Christ, yet he believed. These people saw Christ walk on water. These people saw Christ raise people from the dead, yet they still didn't believe. And so Augustine, he says, how could you guys? How could you guys have little faith? And then he keeps going. And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. Now Christ, he's not somebody who's going to yell at you, somebody who's going to make you feel worse. A lot of times when we commit sin, we think if we go to God, it's actually going to make us feel worse. We're going to feel embarrassed. We're going to feel unwanted. That's not the God we have. Right now, these people, his disciples, think how frustrating it would be for you, for example, if you taught somebody for 3 years, and after 3 years, they're like, what did you teach me again? How frustrating would that be? Extremely frustrating. In fact, you would say, I'm not going to waste my time with you. I'm going to go to somebody else. Christ, though, he starts to teach him from Genesis all the way to the end of the Old Testament about himself. That's how Christ works with us. When you commit a sin, what does he do? He walks with you and teaches you. Okay, don't do this. If you do this, it leads to this. If it leads to this, you're going to lose me. He tells you these things. He doesn't say, how could you? You know who says, how could you? The devil does that. When you sin and you hear that voice saying, oh, how could I do this? What's wrong with me? I'm the worst. I can't come to church. That's the devil. What Christ does is he says, let me walk with you and let me teach you. Let me meet you where you are, and I will lift you up, is what he does. Then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone farther. But they constrained him, saying, stay with us, for it is towards evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to stay with them. After Christ talking to them, they said, please don't leave. They don't know it's Christ yet, but they said, please don't leave us. When you spend time with Christ, truly with your heart, this is the response you have. Please don't leave. Let me keep learning. Let me keep reading. I wonder how many of us have these type of relationships with other people, with our friends. Too many times we waste our time talking about inappropriate things, talking about pointless things. If I was to ask your best friend how they feel about you and the conversations they have with you, they should say this. They should say, I never want that person to leave. The way they make me feel, my best friend, I want them with me all the time. That's what a Christ-like friendship looks like. That's what a godly friendship looks like, where you guys strengthen each other and you thrive off of each other. Not friendships where you make fun of each other or you just all you do is eat and gossip and these things. That's not a true friendship. It even keeps going. Now it came to pass, he sat at the table with them and he took bread, blessed it and broke it and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they knew him and he vanished from their sight. What did they do? What did they do? Are you guys paying attention? Are you guys with me? What did they do? Hello? They broke bread. What is breaking bread? We'll go back to it. Then their eyes were opened and they knew him and he vanished from their sight. And they said to one another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road and while he opened the scriptures to us? When you encounter Christ, your heart has to burn. You guys know that feeling you had? You know, maybe when a prayer was answered or when you read the scriptures and it was speaking to you and you felt your heart burning. Do you know what I'm talking about? That should be how our encounter with Christ is every time. That should be our encounter with one another. We should be uplifting one another to the point where our heart burns because of the love that they showed us. When you talk to Christ and you feel his presence and your heart burns, what do? What's your response to that? You go to somebody else and you help them feel that same thing. That's the part of Christianity we have missed, us. We come here and we're very selfish Christians. We have that burning of our heart for ourselves, but we give it to nobody else. We feel amazing, we feel great, we feel Christ is speaking to us, but we don't share it to anybody else. But what does it say they do? So they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem, found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, the Lord is risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon. And they told about the things that had happened on the road and how he was known to them in the breaking of bread. Their heart was burning, and what did they do after? Did they go home? Did they go to Starbucks?
No.
Maybe there was. But they went straight to Jerusalem, to the 11, and said, Christ is risen. Like I said, every single day after Tinsai, after the celebration that we did, is still considered like Fasika, like Tinsai. These 50 days, every day is counted as Tinsai. Is your heart burning? After this Kadase, after we just sing these Muslims, your heart should be burning for Christ. And what do you do after this? You go and show your love to somebody. Today's Mother's Day, right? What a better time. What a better time. We can't be people that just take and take and take and take from other people and take from God and not give to other people. This is what the Pharisees did. The Pharisees had no love in their heart. They took the knowledge, they took the scriptures, they took the memorization, the learning, all these things, but they did not share any love with anybody. You know, just because when we say "Atubu basalam" here, when we say "go in peace," that doesn't mean the day is done. That doesn't mean your service is done. That doesn't mean that your acts of worship are done. When the deacon says "go in peace," it means go and give peace to others. That's what he's saying. But us, we just look at the time. Okay, when are they done? When are they done? Probably even some of you are saying, when is he going to finish? How long is he going to talk? But we're supposed to go and give this peace to others, as they did. So there's a couple points I want to give you guys. First point, Christ walks with us even while we're in doubt. They're doubting. They didn't know it was Christ. They thought Christ, they didn't know if they'd ever see him again. But he walked with them. He didn't say, "You're not worthy to be my disciple." Too many times we keep thinking that's what God says about us. You're not worthy to be a Christian. You're not worthy to follow me. Did he say that one time to them? Not once. Your doubt is okay. Give your doubt to God. Your doubt is actually good. You know why? It shows a desire. It shows an interest. It shows a want. However, if you let that doubt grow, if you let that doubt grow inside you and you don't give it to Christ, that's when it becomes dangerous. If you're doubting something, be doubtful. Bring it to the fathers of the church. Say, "I have questions." If you have doubts, bring it to our Lord and Savior. What does God say in the scriptures? He said, "Come to me and I will reason with you." Let's reason together. That's the God we have. If you have a problem, let's reason. Let's discuss. But to live in doubt, that's not what a Christian does. A Christian lives in faith. We don't live in doubt. Next point. We do not see Christ with our eyes, but we encounter him by faith. So you guys should be asking the question, why did they not recognize Christ? Like, that's weird. Like, if I saw one of the deacons out somewhere, they would recognize me, right? And I would recognize them. Why did they not recognize Christ? Because this is the resurrected Christ. The resurrected Christ pushes us to have faith. Before he resurrected, he was with them through everything. When Peter was trying to walk on the water and he's falling, he picks him up. When the boat is shaking, he calms it. He's with them because they're such babies in faith. But every time he does these things, what does he say? "You're so little of faith. You have little faith. Why are you afraid?" Now that he's resurrected, though, he said, "I'm not going to hold your hands anymore. I'm going to hide myself from you. I'm going to hide myself so you don't recognize me, because you need to have faith." Now we're dealing with the resurrected Christ. Us today. This is why we no longer see Christ in the bodily form. But he's still with us as he was here. If you live in faith, you will see him. You will see him, just like the disciples saw him. You will see him. But it takes the faith. With Mary Magdalene, she didn't recognize him until he called her by name. Then she recognized him. Why? He's pushing her to grow in her faith. This is the part of Christianity we're in right now, where Christ is asking us for faith to see him. How do we have this faith? It says, actually I read it, let me ask you guys. When did they recognize it was him? When did they recognize it was him? At what point did they say, "This is Christ"? When they broke bread. What is breaking bread? That's his flesh and blood. When they took his flesh and blood, they recognized him. It is impossible, and forgive me if this sounds harsh, for you to recognize Christ without his flesh and blood. You may get glimpses, you may get a taste of it, but to recognize the resurrected Christ, you need to take his flesh and blood. They were unable to see him, unable to have hope, unable to feel comfort, unable to feel peace until they broke bread with him. We can't, if we're seeking peace, if we're seeking comfort, if we're seeking these things without his flesh and blood, we'll never get it. And it's true. Ask of yourself, in your life, you've had moments of peace and moments of stress. Most of the time, unfortunately, especially as you get older, it's moments of stress. Why? Because the peace you're chasing is peace of this world. But when you're seeking the peace of Christ, his flesh and blood, your peace becomes eternal. So ask yourself, why am I always without hope? Why am I always doubting? Why am I always stressed? Ask yourself that, and then ask yourself, how many times have I taken his flesh and blood? That's your answer. And then what happens after you take his flesh and blood? It says their hearts were burning. As you read the scriptures, as you partake in the liturgy, as you participate in the chanting, as you take his flesh and blood, your heart is burning. Burning with what? With love. You become a better husband, you become a better wife, you become a better son, you become a better daughter, a better friend. You become like Christ. And as I said, once you encounter him, once you take his flesh and blood, once your heart is burning, in order not to lose it, because all of us, we've had it before. We've all felt Christ. We've all had those spiritual highs. But we've all lost it. How do we keep it? How do we keep it? It's found in your neighbor. To keep it, it's found in the person next to you. A father that I know, we asked him, what do you do when you feel spiritually low? When you feel spiritually cold, what do you do? He says, I throw myself at the feet of my neighbor and I serve him. And then I see Christ again. The reason why we keep having spiritually lows and we're just like this, is because we are not doing enough for our neighbor. Who's our neighbor? Start in your house. Start with your brother in your house. Start with your sister in your house. Start with your father, your mother. A lot of the times when we think of our neighbor, we think of the homeless person. Why do you have to go to the homeless person? Start at home. Of course, go to the homeless person too, but at home. Start with them, and you'll find Christ. You find Christ in your neighbor. And so, I really urge you guys, even though during this time it's a time of joy, don't be blinded by it. We're still celebrating Tinsai. It's still the resurrection. It's still the Holy 50. You should be joyous. You should be worshiping. You should be hopeful. There's a saying in our church. I'll just translate it. When we stop praying, fasting, and prostrating, we begin to die, even though Christ had already arisen. This is not the time to be living as if we're dead. Christ is resurrected. Truly, he's resurrected. We have to reflect that. We have to live that. We have to partake in his flesh and blood.